we need to look at a company and try to assess how risky is it? How much should we price the insurance for that kind of a company? And that is a fascinating task. It's a fascinating challenge for us to crack down. And the last piece of it is after the company is already purchasing insurance and they are insureds of ours, and we share the risk from a financial perspective. We want to keep them at a minimal risk and want to keep them as safe as possible. And we do a lot of efforts around that, including active risk monitoring and building security products that serve them in a way that will reduce risk for all of us. We share the risk, we partner on the risk to an extent.
Benny Shlesinger, welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. I'm very excited to have you here. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Michael, for inviting me.
I am really, really excited. I really like AdBay, and I think that what you're doing is really awesome. I think that looking into the future of cybersecurity threats on small businesses and organizations, and looking at how insurance is sort of like this oldest idea, and modernizing it to fit the needs of where the risks are. They're not just in earthquakes. They're not just in incidents and in accidents in the office. Now we have new forms of risks that are rising. So I'm excited to learn a little bit more about that and what are these risks that we're experiencing and how AdBay works, but also your own journey, VP of Cyber Technologies within AdBay, previously Director of Product Management in some phenomenal companies, including Checkpoint. So really, really amazing background. Tell me a little bit about the space that we're in, cyber insurance. What does this even mean?
Yeah, so cyber insurance is obviously a financial tool of insurance to deal with and cover any losses that are related to cyber security attacks. With the growth in cyber risk and as we see more and more types of attacks and the higher levels of sophistication of attacks, in past years, companies had to find ways to deal with this kind of a risk of getting hit by a ransomware attack, or it could be a financial fraud or a business email compromise, breaches of data of all sorts, and in some types of companies, also ways to halt manufacturing, for example. These kinds of risks are fundamental and they're existential for a lot of organizations. On the other hand, building the defenses that a company needs is not trivial at all, especially when it comes to hiring the right people, affording the best solutions out there. So these are challenges that not all organizations are dealing with very well. So they're getting in insurance instead of that. On our end, as an insurance provider, it's also an interesting challenge. We need to look at a company and try to assess how risky is it. How much should we price the insurance for that kind of a company? And that is a fascinating task. It's a fascinating challenge for us to crack down. The last piece of it is after the company is already purchasing insurance and they are insureds of ours, and we share the risk from a financial perspective. We want to keep them at a minimal risk and want to keep them as safe as possible. And we do a lot of efforts around that, including active risk monitoring and building security products that serve them in a way that will reduce risk for all of us. We share the risk, we partner on the risk to an extent.
Absolutely. How do you quantify risk for a lot of these things? Because I imagine that you can come to a building and a home and look at the status of the condition of the roof, and you can assume a certain risk given a certain rainfall. how do you assess risk on cybersecurity threats?
Yep. So first of all, we're trying to look at it from the eyes of the hacker. If I was an hacker, how would I be looking at this company, and would I be able to see any cracks in the walls or any open windows I can try to get in, through which I can try and get in. So we are scanning the customers in a way that a hacker would, to try and find how to get in, and we're looking also at other pieces of data that we have, things that are related to the industry the company works at. Obviously, the annual revenue kind of quantifies the size of the target, right?
Mm-hmm.
A larger company, you can extort more than a very small company. So we're looking at the firmographic data, we're looking at the tech stack that we can identify, even things that are not vulnerable per se, but we do know them as ways for some hackers to get in, are things that we're looking at. So all of that together, and it's an ongoing challenge. Things change all the time in this space. We see hackers changing the way they conduct their attacks, and we see defenses change, and we need to keep track of all of that all of the time.
Makes
And eventually, the advantage that we have here is that the insurance business is coming with a lot of tools to quantify risk. So we have loss ratios, frequencies, severities, a bunch of terms and words that I've learned when I just joined Bay and joined this world of insurance. But actually, they have a lot of tools, and as you said, it's not an ancient craft, insurance, but it is. It has like 200 years, 250 years of practices, and so we're using that and marrying these two worlds of cybersecurity and insurance, bringing in the best of these two worlds together, and that's what we do. That's the interesting part.
I love it, and we're talking about deep fakes and about synthetic media. This is one example of a new form of risk, which is coming. It's appearing in different ways, and it also shows that it has different ways of costing the organization, right? In some cases, there's the $25 million heist. In other cases, they hack the admin of G Suite. It's two different quantities of risk, which I don't even know how to even quantify that. So looking at these types of risks that are either a little bit into the future, or they're emerging, or that they're looking more into the social engineering phishing state, how do you, as an insurer, quantify that risk? You have to sort of look into the future while also having the dynamics of looking at the different attack vectors.
Yeah, exactly. So looking at the rear mirror is always easier, and that's what usually insurance does. Because when you look at most of the areas of insurance, like home insurance or automobile insurance, usually they have credibility of multiple years in the past.
Mm-hmm.
The way that car accidents happen did not dramatically change over the last few years. Maybe with more autonomous cars, it will change, but for now, the risk is pretty much the same. For us, it changes all the time. So we do look back as much as we can, and we are keeping track of recent couple of years. It is still indicative into future risks. And the interesting thing is that we have around 37,000 companies that are insured by us. So every year we gain 37,000 years of experience in being at the driver's seat, or at least next to the driver's seat, for 37,000 SMBs. So we use that a lot. other than that, we're using our imagination and we're trying to predict what's next. For example, deep fakes used to get in or to create some kind of a financial fraud. We believe in many cases it will realize itself in financial fraud. So it's that kind of a game. Usually, we will not be acting on something that wasn't quantified fully. So until we actually see claims coming in from, in this case, deep fake financial frauds, probably it will be very hard for us to quantify that and to really price it out.
But and I think it sounds like the fact that you're sitting and you're getting this sort of bird's eye view on 37,000 SMBs, you probably have the best eyes on what is the state of threats for SMBs, right? This is, I mean, you're literally seeing the claims. You're seeing the pain as it happens, and then you can aggregate it. And so I think that it's a phenomenal place to be. And I want to hear a little bit about your own journey and about your own sort of progression from the Hebrew University to different institutions, product, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So I've been with computers from a relatively young age. And I started programming in elementary school, some basic things. But somewhere when I was growing up, I wanted to do a little bit more. I wanted to get out of the sheer technical perspective of how to engineer things, rather into business-oriented things. And as I went to my army service, and then had to decide, or came to the point where I decide what to study, I really wanted to somehow find a way to do something that is related to computer science, to computers in general, but also have a business aspect to it. So I started this program in the Hebrew University for computer science and an MBA at the same time. And when I was done with my studies, I joined another friend to co-found basically an NGO in Israel that aimed to change the way that other NGOs are using technology. Specifically, there was one big, the relatively large project that we did in partnership with the government and some leading NGOs or organizations that oversee the third sector in Israel, to build a platform for transparency. It's called GuideStar. It still is active, and it is managed by the Department of Justice here in Israel. It's the same model as was created in the US. So for me personally, it was a very, very interesting experience. I learned so much there. I had a chance to do a lot of mistakes in this kind of sandbox. Did a lot of interesting things, and it did take me out of the scope of being a programmer or doing only the technical stuff. From there, I moved to, at some point, I had to grow up a little bit and get out of the NGO space. And I happened to, I didn't want to go to an enterprise, to a larger company, but I happened to get accepted into Checkpoint, which is more or less the largest you'll find in Israel, at least at that time. And I started to learn about cybersecurity into more depth, and also about the enterprise software world and how the business mechanics work. And that was fascinating. And at least in Tel Aviv, it's very hard to learn all of that in any other company other than Checkpoint, which is headquartered here and takes all the decisions here in Tel Aviv. So that was an amazing school for me. there were very interesting things in working for Checkpoint, like a lot of business orientation. On the other hand, I always felt that it wasn't proper product management as it is done in other places. It lacks a little bit the hands-on part of product management, actually writing the requirements, working on the user experience into details and all of that. So I've decided to move to SentinelOne. It was a little bit before they went public, and it was a hell of a ride. It's a spaceship. At least at that time, it was a spaceship. It was still 2021, and everything was moving very, very fast, hyper growth. It was super. It taught me a lot, and then I saw this opportunity to join Ep1092 and to view this whole world of cyber security from a different position. So the first position was very much biased towards network security and what can you learn about a company and how can you protect it from looking at the network or residing in the network. Endpoint security is very different, but these are basically the two largest fields within cybersecurity. The endpoint was also very, very interesting. A lot of details, a lot of things that are related to how the operating system works and bits and bytes there, and also learning about the security operation aspect of it. With Ep1092, it's a different point of view, where you actually look at risk, not specifically at protecting the network or protecting the endpoints. We are not looking to create the best security out there. If you look at most of the known cybersecurity companies, they provide you with the best. You deserve the best security. There's one company that says that. They're trying to give you the best security. As an insurance company, we're not necessarily looking into the best. We're looking into what makes sense, where the ROI lies. There are things we can compensate our customers when they get breached. It's okay when that happens. We need to statistically lower the loss ratio and how much we get to pay back to our customers, and that's our main goal. That's what we're looking at.
Wow, I love it, and I love how you're making the distinction for, positioning of what are we looking for? We're looking for where there is the highest ROI, where we can actually provide real tangible value on real actionable claims, because the industry, there's a lot of really scary things that could happen. There's a lot of different ways to create risk, but then it's all about, well, what is actually happening on the field. And I guess that it is also important that there's a distinction for SMBs, right? And it's different environment and different experience than with perhaps very large enterprises in terms of how they think through these sorts of things, I assume, right?
Yeah, absolutely. When you look at a large bank, especially like international banks, they have the budget. They sometimes buy products just to have a proof of concept for a year, to try and compare this endpoint to another one, or this firewall to a different firewall, and how would it, and they spend millions over that. They have teams that are just built to compare these products. When you go to an SMB, they're not even aware of all the options that are out there. They're not in most cases, they won't have anyone that is focused on cybersecurity, let alone a security operations team that can actually operate all those products. They lack some awareness. They lack a lot of working hands and people like a talent gap that they suffer from. They need the people, and they usually don't have budgets to get the higher end products. We see a lot of second, third tier endpoint security providers, email security providers, all of that. So the challenge is very, very different. It's a challenge of making the customer aware, bringing them solutions that they can afford themselves, and also help them manage that, because they usually don't have the people to do that. It's very...
Benny, I really want to thank you for the time and for the insights and the energy. Really, really awesome. Really love what you guys are doing at AdBay, and thank you for sharing, the space with me and the insights. And I look forward to sharing this with the world. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me.